What's happening, everybody? Welcome into a brand new episode of Crossed Up. Anthony Sanfilippo's here. I'm Bob Wankel, and if you only heard what I just said before we started recording this podcast, that's the you have to go to the subscription model for that content. Interesting show today, Anthony. The Phillies lose 2 out of 3 of the Guardians. They've lost 4 straight series. They're under 500 in July. They've been a 500 team since they've come back from London. They hit in bunches, then they don't hit. They're getting decent starting pitching, and the bullpen stinks. Like, it's a little bit of a mess right now. But let me ask you one question, because I'm going to rip them apart today a little bit. I am. But I'm going to ask you one question, and I'll answer my own question after you go. Are you any less confident in the Phillies' ability to win the World Series in this moment than you were, let's say, I don't know, the night that they swept the Dodgers?
No.
So you're right where you were. 3-game sweep of the Dodgers. Nobody can touch us. Johan Rojas says we're winning the World Series. Come see us, all that stuff.
Yeah, and the reason is, Bob, is because I take as you know, as people who listen to the show know all the time, I have a more of a long view with baseball, right? I look at this sport in a lot different way than I look at every other sport, because I just know how it goes for a lot of teams year in, year out. Just the experience of watching the sport, not just watching one team, which I don't want to say unfortunately, that would be a bad word by me, but a lot of Phillies fans watch the Phillies and are living and dying with the Phillies on a daily basis. And I get it, and you should. That's fun. That's why you're in on the Phillies. It's great, and that's awesome. And I love the fact that you do that. But I also think that a lot of fans don't pay attention to the rest of baseball. And so what the complaints that we have, and they are legitimate complaints about the Phillies, and I'm sure you're going to rip them and get into them, and I'll probably agree with you on most of it, is that the same thing happens all around the league. So if you look around the league, like the other really good teams also have these problems that the Phillies are having, right? So this is part of what baseball is. So when I look at it and I sit there and say, from an overall perspective, yeah, they're playing like crap right now. They have been for a little while, but does that deter me from believing that this is the best team in baseball and that they're going to win the World Series? I think, or they have a really good shot at winning the World Series? No, it doesn't deter me at all.
Well, you will be surprised to know that I agree with you. I really have not felt, if you look at the big picture, I've not felt any differently based on what we've seen for the last 2 weeks or so. That being said, I do think that their play is somewhat concerning in this moment. I think I'm reasonably confident that they will get it back on track, but you know, obviously since we've last talked, they've made additions, and we're going to get into that in a minute, and we can surely discuss whether or not they need to make any more additions. Let's just talk about what we saw on the field this weekend, though. What troubles me a little bit, and I understand that Cleveland has a phenomenal bullpen, but you come out on Friday night and you score 1 run. You do nothing offensively, absolutely nothing. Then you see the barrage on Saturday night. You go, oh, look, the boys are back. This is what they do, and the Phillies are at their best. Look at them. And they blow them out. Tyler Phillips, again, was great. Great story. And you're like, all right, now it's time to go win a series on Sunday. It's been a while. This is an opportunity here. You come out, and you're up 3-0 in the 3rd inning with 2 runners on and 1 out, and you're ready to deliver a knockout blow to this team, and you can't do it. And the 2 through 6 hitters go, 0 for 18 combined? And then the bullpen has been a disaster in July. The whole thing has been a mess. They have the worst bullpen ERA in baseball entering play yesterday in the month of July, 6.41. So if you're like a little bit...
Although I do want to say part of that is
Michael Mercado's blow up. Oh, and Stubbs. Yeah. And that's fine. Like, you could take, but like, yeah, sure. You could take the finale against the A's and extract it, and it looks a lot better.
Yeah.
Still has not been good. And I think that anyone that's been watching would acknowledge it has not been particularly good. And yesterday was a decent day for the bullpen. 5 innings, 5 different relievers, only 1 earned run. Great. But then that 1 earned run stands so tall because your offense doesn't score beyond the 3rd inning and has 2 hits. Like, Jose Alvarado has been a little bit better his last 3 times out, and I thought he made an okay pitch. It was a 98-mile-per-hour sinker in off the plate, and Kwan got to it. And like Rob said after the game yesterday, beat him to a spot. Like, I'm okay with that. Like, I can go for that. But the whole vibe, like the Phillies were getting into tight games for 2-3 months, and you felt like they're going to win because that's what they do, because they're the adults in the room. They're going to find a way. And right now they're getting into these games where you don't feel like that. Like, I don't know about you, but yesterday that ball that Turner hit, booted it, well, not booted, but I thought misplayed, led to a 3-run homer. I was like, they're going to lose this game. They're going to lose this game. And that's kind of where I'm at with them right now. The vibe is off. They're not playing well. Certain guys are pressing. Their at-bats have been just dreadful. I mean, remove Saturday from the equation for one moment when they faced a quad A guy in Carlos Carrasco, who, like, God bless him, but like, I can't believe that guy is still in the game at this point. It's like facing Taiwan Walker, if we're being honest. Like, you remove that from the equation, like, they're at-bats. It's not just like, oh man, loud outs. They've been dreadful at-bats. So I think if you're watching this, you are allowed to be frustrated. You are, because they've not played well. They've been stupid. They've been sloppy. They look unfocused. I'm not saying that they are. I'm not saying that they're not trying or that they don't want to win, but their play has been very erratic. And overall, they look like a team that needs a kick in the ass a little bit.
I don't disagree with you. I think that you're pretty spot on. And I think that it really exacerbates itself when at least two of the top 3 guys in the lineup are not hitting. And this weekend, Turner was not good, and Harper was, other than the home run on Saturday, Friday and Sunday, he was kind of invisible. And even the other at-bats on Saturday, besides the home run, was, kind of invisible. He's now down under 290. He was over 300 going into this year, or at least during the Minnesota series, he was in 300, and now he's at like 287 or something. So yeah, it really becomes noticeable when your best players are not hitting. And then you couple the fact that, Alec Boehm's been kind of not what he was earlier in the year. I mean, he's not terrible, but he's also not, he's still getting his doubles, but he's not driving in runs like he was before. And that makes it even worse. And then you go further down the lineup, and at the bottom of the lineup is not that great right now. And yes, we've gone over the disappointments of Marsh and Stott, who didn't play yesterday, which I know you want to talk about. But talk about that. Yeah, I know you do. And look, I mean, you had Stubbs yesterday, but even Real Muto, since he's come back, hasn't looked good. Anything. No. Yeah, I mean, so like, I mean, you got some guys that are just not going right now. And you can't do it with just 1 or 2 guys going. You need more than that. You need at least half your lineup has to be, going. I mean, like, just look at what they did yesterday against the Guardian starter, Joey Cantillo, making his major league debut. Awesome. Yeah. Great. I love it. And Phillies, PR communications team put out this note before the game about how pitchers in their major league debut at Citizens Bank Park only have like 2 wins in its entire history. The ERA, I think, is like north of 8 or something. And they got him because Kyle Schwarber got to him. I mean, Kyle Schwarber was 2 for 2 with 802 feet of home runs. The rest of the lineup was 2 for 13 against a suspect lefty making his major league debut on the road. Like, come on, like, I kind of went into that game yesterday. I was like, this is going to be tough. Like, this is a game where you figure there's going to be a lot of offense. They're going to need to be good offensively. Colby Allard, I thought was actually okay. I don't think that the Phillies did him any favors behind him. But it's just a situation where you expect that offense to be able to rip apart a guy like that. And besides Kyle Schwarber, they had nothing for him. Yeah. So look, I mean, we could sit down and rip apart every single aspect of this and talk about 4-8 over the last 12. But I agree. Like, you step back, you take a deep breath and say, like, I don't feel great about this in the moment. I still don't think it has anything to necessarily do with October. What disappoints me, though, and one thing I will say, and I think it is more than fair, everyone keeps pointing out, well, the Phillies haven't lost any ground as bad as they've been over the last 14 games or whatever it's been, 12 games. They're not losing ground. Like, that's true, but they've also now allowed the Mets back into the conversation with the Braves. So now there's like 2 teams that are sort of lurking. And you go like, all right, man, relax. Like, what do we mean lurking? It's like 8.5, 9.5 games. But then you look at the schedule and what they have coming up over the next 2 weeks. And I will say this,
They are running a race by themselves right now. They're out in the middle of nowhere and nobody's near them. But you do this, you dick around another 2 weeks, and all of a sudden you're going to have to look at the standings and the fifth inning cut-ins where Tom McCarthy's like, and the Braves have taken a 2-1 lead against the Royals or whoever tonight. Like, we're going to do that because if you go and you mess around with the Yankees and you mess around with the Mariners, and I understand these teams aren't world beaters. The Yankees have been miserable for about a month and a half, although they did win a series in Boston this weekend. Maybe that gets them going. They're starting to hit a little bit. Go figure. But you get the Mariners on the road. You get the Dodgers in a revenge spot out west. It's never easy to win there. And then the Diamondbacks, who have been okay. So, like, point being, you keep this up, and you're going to get yourself a race that you weren't expecting to have. So they're sort of at the line for me where it's like, okay, it's baseball, ebbs and flows, all that bullshit. It's time now, buddy. Like, let's go.
Yeah, I mean, you'd like to see him. Let's go, especially considering who the opponents are going to be. Like, you'd like to see
because of the opponents, who the opponents are going to be, and because it's been 2 months. Like, it's been 2 months since they've been. Like, this is like they got off to a good start in June. Like, but like the better part of 5-6 weeks, it's been.
Yeah.
I hope that came across on my mic. That sound. That
it was the
sound.
Like, it came across.
The best team in baseball. I know. Like, they're not going to win 110 games. Fine. They're not going to beat the Mariners 116 wins. Fine. Maybe they don't beat the 2011's 101 wins or whatever it was. Okay.
Yeah.
Fine. You don't have to set the all-time franchise wins record. Like, that would have been fun. It would have been cool to just be that team. They're not that team though. That's okay. Maybe you win 94, 96, whatever it is. But, come on. Like, it's been 6 weeks. Turn it back on.
They do need to turn it. They do need to turn it back on. And to me, if I'm going to sit there and say where the issues are, to me, it's the lineup. I still don't even worry about the bullpen. I think the bullpen's going to be fine.
So it's funny. You are the complete reverse of how the Phillies view this. I think right now, tell me if I'm wrong, but like, it feels like that the Phillies have convinced themselves and the Phillies do this funny thing where, like, we have an outfield problem and we probably need to upgrade center field. And then nothing happens. And then middle of February rolls around and they're like, here's Johan Rojas. We think he can do it. No, you don't. No, you don't. Like, you never thought that he could do it. But then they give you Johan Rojas as your center fielder to open the season. And they tell you if everyone else does their job and Johan Rojas hits 230, we're good. Like, this team has a glaring outfield deficiency. And now they give you Austin Hayes, who I think is a perfect fit in terms of, hey, can a guy hit left-handed pitching? I'm in. Sell me that. I'll buy it. You're giving me this guy as he's an everyday starting outfielder. You don't know that. How do you know that?
Yeah, you don't.
What has he done that has demonstrated to you that he's that guy?
Nothing.
This year. I'm living in this year. Because, like, if we live in last year.
Even last year.
It wasn't like you lit the world on fire, but, like, 2023. Well, yeah, Whit Merrifield was an all-star in 2023. So I don't.
Right.
I'm sorry. Don't care. So
yeah, no, I don't know.
Like, don't tell me that, like, you just bought a Maserati when you bought like I don't know. I don't want to offend anybody out there that's driving around a sports car of their choice, and I don't like it, but don't tell me you want something that it's not, and it's not. He's not
a Nissan Altima like I drive.
There you go. I'll insult you. Yeah. I mean, like. And I guess that's my thing. And I guess the idea here is like Marsh more in center field now, Rojas a little less maybe in center field. And that's your not platoon. I know it's not a platoon, but maybe that's the mix.
I see that. And to me, the offense is a bigger concern for me than the pitching. I think the bullpen's going to be just fine. I really do. Really, when it comes to, even if they don't make another move, Bob, and I'm not convinced that they're done. But even if they don't make another move, if I say to you, you got 6 guys out in that bullpen who throw just nasty shit, and then they're going to come in the playoffs whenever you want, Matt, you're going to match up however you think is the best matchup, and they're going to come in and they're going to give you 3 innings or three to 4 innings every game and just bury you because you have good enough starting pitching and you haven't had to burn them out this year. Like I think they're going to be in good shape there. I really do. The lineup is where the if there is a concern, it's the fact that they do go through these streaky stretches where nobody hits. And that's a thing. And so it's interesting though, because the question was asked of Rob on Saturday night. And this, I wanted to get your response to this quote because it ties into what you just said, what you just were talking about. The question was asked to Rob about, when he found out about the Estevez trade and et cetera, et cetera. And, if you don't do anything else, do you think that this team's good enough to win a World Series? And Rob's answer was, I think that the roster, if we had done nothing, if we had stood pat, the roster we had was good enough to win a World Series, and these 2 trades just made us better. So I do think that there is a little bit of I don't want to call it arrogance, but a little bit of a belief within the organization that it's like, we're good enough as we are. And that might not necessarily be the case. You might need to still put something else out there to get over the hump that you need to get over. Are they good enough? Sure, they're good enough. Yeah, they can win as constituted. They're the best team in baseball for a reason. But do you want to make it you want to increase your chances even more? Then you need to go and improve the offense a little bit.
It's funny trying to unwrap the psychology of that. Like, it's great that you have that confidence. There's part of me, though, only part of me, not all of me, that wonders if getting off to that start and beating the crap out of all these inferior opponents, and I know that they've beaten good teams. Like, I'm not going to sit there and try to ride.
They swept the Dodgers, right?
I'm not trying to ride the narrative that they beat up on a bunch of cupcakes to puff up their record and they're not that good. Like, that's not what I'm saying here. But, like, they get off to this start, and I do wonder if it distorts the reality of what they are, and it distorts in a negative way the way that they view themselves moving forward. Like, it's good to be confident, and it's good to be arrogant, but you better not be short-sighted as you feel those things. And I think that is the concern. Like, I would say, well, Rob, because I don't want to overreact to a weekend. I don't want to overreact to the 3 series post All-Star break. But I would say, like, well, what do you say to the fact that for the better part a month and a half, like, you have not been the best team in baseball, and that you do have recurring issues that seem to come out rather frequently. So it's cool that you're arrogant top down, like from from Dave Dombrowski all the way down through the 26th guy on the roster. Like, have that swagger. But I do wonder if they're sort of miscalculating what they currently have. And I do think that that's fair to wonder. And I would say this to you. Can they win the World Series as currently constructed? Yeah. And do I believe they could win the World Series prior to making any of these moves? I do. But why would you turn a blind eye to some of these problems and say, let's do everything we can to address any potential deficiency? Because you can be as arrogant as you want about 2024. They're not going to have a better opportunity in the near term to win a championship. And guess what? As inconvenient as it may be and as annoying as it might be, you fucking blew it last year. You did. So, me, I keep searching, and I don't think they're going to add to the lineup. I don't. I think that they are going to go out there and Hayes and Rojas and Marshew and hope it works. And I think that that's a mistake. I do. But what the hell do I know, right? Like, what? No, I'm sitting here in my basement recording a podcast with you. I'm not saying that I am right. I'm just saying if it were me, and Phillies fans should probably be very thankful that it's not me. But I just think that there's more to do offensively. That all being said, and I apologize, I'm very long-winded today. It is up to the guys that you have that are your core, that are your vital guys to do it. Like, if Bryce Harper is going to be dog shit and Trey Turner is going to go 1 for 14 and pop out 13 times in a series, then none of this matters. Like, those dudes have to be dudes, but like, you can get better on the fringes here. And I don't think they've done enough. I don't.
Yeah. It's interesting. One of the things that Dombrowski said when we talked to him on Saturday night was, it's going to hurt at some point when you make a trade to try to win, and we are trying to win. Well, if that's the case, if that's your philosophy that it's going to hurt at some point, that means you're willing to give up your future when you're trying to win. And although I felt like those two guys, Klassen and Aldeguerri, are probably major league quality talents, and was a lot to give up for a rental to the Angels. So you are, that is going to, that does hurt your system a little bit. I don't think it's that big of a hurt, right? Like, you still have your three main top prospects are still here. Then you haven't done enough. Like, I get wanting to hold on to a couple of these guys. I would too. I'm not saying you have to trade all of Painter and Crawford and Aiden Miller. You don't have to trade every one of those guys, but I do think you have to move one of them.
Yeah.
Right? I do think you have. If you don't, then to me, you haven't gone all in a year that you should be.
And the thing that everyone will hang over their heads and let them hear about if this doesn't work out is the save the powder. Like that's one I guarantee you they'd like to have back, because you have saved the powder, and like you're not.
Yeah.
They didn't use the powder these past few days. Like, by the way, I want to get this right. I keep hearing Estevez. Like, is it Estevez? Because like I heard, I actually went. I'm going to tell you what I did.
Well, so Dombrowski said Estevez.
Okay.
But I've always said Estevez.
Okay.
So I'm not exactly sure what it is.
All right. Well, whatever. Let's just acknowledge that one of us is probably doing this wrong. I have no idea. But like the move to acquire him, I think. Actually, let's start with you. What do you think about him?
I'm not a huge fan, in all honesty. I mean, I think look. Do I think he makes the bullpen better? Yes, because he's better than Sir Anthony.
How does he slot in right now with what they have? Like,
they said they're putting him in the ninth inning. So, like, they look at him as the closer in a lot of ways. I mean,
look at it. If I'm Jeff Hoffman, I'm like, okay, like. Yeah. I don't know. Like, one, I've been really good at this. Two, my contract's coming up. Are you guys going to just pencil in the saves I would have recorded? Like, I know it's not 1997 and you're like looking at save totals when you're dishing out contracts these days, but like, not inconsequential either.
For sure. So he's going right to the back end. There's no question of that. And I do think he makes the bullpen better, but I also don't think he's the guy that we've seen the last 2 months. I mean, Dave was talking about, he's retired 54 of his last 58 hitters. He's only walked 5 guys, and nobody's hitting against him. And I think he's going to put whatever small number of runs he's given up since May or whatever it is. That's all well and good, and that's great. But I look at the back of the baseball card, and I look at Carlos Estevez, and I sit there and go,
no, you're only allowed to use the back of the baseball card when your right fielder's hitting 140 at the end of April. That's the only time you're allowed to say that.
And I look at it and I go, okay, like, this guy's fine, but he's not like, the best reliever available. I don't agree with that. Like, there were other guys that I personally liked a little bit better than him. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll be wrong. I hope the Phillies evaluators are right, and that they, this guy comes in and continues to dominate like he has the last 2 months, and that would be great for the Phillies. Yeah. I just look at it and say,
I mean, the numbers are interesting. I mean, 5.3 hits per 9 is out of this world.
Right, it's great. It's great.
There's one thing.
Has he done that in the past, Bob?
No.
Oh,
no, I mean, in Colorado, but
did you look at his breakdown last year? By the way,
yeah.
I mean, his final numbers end up not being good, right? Overall, but he was an all-star last year. So at this point, a year ago, he was like really, really good. On July 30th of 23, he had a 1.88 ERA, right? From his next appearance on. So his next appearance wasn't until August 3rd to the end of the year. I'm doing the totals for you now.
Beat me to
because Yeah, I mean, because when you look at it and you finish with a 3.90 ERA, your ERA jumps by 2 full runs, in the second half of the season. It tells you something's not right. So, I look at it and say he did the same thing a year ago and then fell off the table in the second half of the year. So, am I wrong to be concerned that might happen again? I hear final from August 3rd to the end of the year last year. 8.38 ERA. Batters hit 325 against him with a 417 OPS and an 417 on base percentage, 887 OPS. Just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah. Well, look, here's one thing I will say. I like guys that strike out hitters. And
I know you do.
Game, I do, and I know maybe I put too much value in it. I'm looking at a guy that isn't striking out 9 per 9 innings right now.
Nope.
And I'm like, and like the one thing about like batting average and balls in play, like I know people like just say that straight luck. If your number's high, it's a product of bad luck. If the number's low, it's a product of good luck. I think that's a very large oversimplification.
Yeah.
But I will just say this, like last year, 344. This year, 202. Like that is such a significant disparity. And like I wonder, like what
you know what it was in the second half of last year?
Probably based on what you just said, probably like 430.
436.
There you go.
436.
Half of the balls that were put in play landed as hits in the second half of the season against them. Oh boy. Just imagine, roll that forward. Look, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I haven't watched him pitch more than 4 times this season. Like he's had a good year. I was aware of it. I was aware of it prior to the deadline. I think, by the way, call out. I always like kind of call it like it is. I try not to say things and I try not to talk about subjects that I know I don't know about. Like I try. I love this current media landscape. I do. Like, what do you think about this guy? Oh, well, I looked at his baseball reference for 30 seconds, but I'm going to not tell you that and pretend like I'm a scout. Like, how many different people right now are like, oh, yeah, he does this and he does that and he throws 96. And I'm like, you didn't watch him. You have not watched one single appearance of this guy. Let's not pretend like you have. There are very few people in this market that can honestly, with a straight face, tell you what they think about this guy full book. I would tell you, based on what I've seen and the very little that I know, I think it's a good move. I think it probably becomes their second or third best reliever upon landing here. It's a good move. I have no problem with it. My problem is, here's my problem. From the left side, Matt Strahm. I feel great about Matt Strahm, but I don't necessarily want to just bring in Matt Strahm to take down lefties in the postseason. Like I want Matt Strahm in an important situation because I trust him that much right now. Mm-hmm. After that, Jose Alvarado better get it together because I'm gonna tell you right now. I want, and I said it Friday, and if you guys listen to this, I apologize for being redundant. I'm gonna say it again though. I want nothing to do with Gregory Soto in a high leverage situation in any important game. You want to do it when you're up 9 games in the middle of July? Fine. Come October, absolutely not. I don't feel great about what the Phillies are bringing from the left side right now. And that's why I don't think they're done.
I don't think they're done. I honestly, and we've discussed this, and I've written it, and maybe I'm completely off the reservation and missing all the signals, right? I think they're adding a starting pitcher.
So do I. If you ask me right now, yeah, I agree. That's would be my guess too.
And that one that gives them the flexibility to slide a lefty into the bullpen.
Yep.
So it could be this person that they acquire, or it could be, hey, this guy's good enough starting pitcher to start, and we can use Ranger in the way we've used Ranger in the past in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Whatever the case might be. Like I think that's what the Phillies are going to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that they make a move for pitching. And I wonder if they're looking at the Tanner Scotts of the world saying, for the price, no. Like, there's another way to do this.
He doesn't quite give you the flexibility. In other words, like I think that they want a guy. I think they're concerned enough about the health of their rotation with especially with all these games coming in August, with all the travel and all the games coming with only 2 off days. They kind of hinted that they're going to go to a 6-man rotation, but you don't have the pitchers right now to go to a 6-man rotation. Right? And you can tell us all you want how great Taijuan Walker's live batting practice session was the other day. Through 38 pitches, looked the best they've ever seen him. Okay. All right. That's wonderful. That's great. You can tell us that all you want.
With no timetable on him. No timetable.
No timetable.
It's great, but we don't know when he's coming back.
But then here's the other little nugget that I think kind of got lost under the radar a little bit. But Dombrowski, when talking about Spencer Turnbull, said, we haven't made a decision yet, but we're not sure that we can get him stretched back out to be a starter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now, if Turnbull's not going to get back in time to be a starter, we have no timetable on Taijuan Walker. Ranger Suarez has had to take 2 weeks off and now another 2 weeks off to deal with back issues.
That's no big deal, though. No sweat.
And you need a 6-man rotation for August, which you've told us this was probably coming. Who's the 6 guys? Where are they? So to me, they're trading for a starting pitcher, and he's not saying it. He won't. Dave does not like to show his cards, right? I think, though, before tomorrow's deadline, that there will be another starting pitcher in Philadelphia.
Yeah. I mean, I hear you. I think I brought this up last week. I think I kind of threw this out here. I mean, I think that everything about them screams we want to go to 6 men. They don't have them. And look, I mean, Spencer Turnbull, I was on WIP last night with Hunter Brody, and he was like, what do you think about Spencer Turnbull? I said, what do you think about Spencer Turnbull? Your guess is as good as mine. If he's not going to be stretched back out to be a starting pitcher, there's like 2 big concerns here. Number one, you shut him down for a prolonged stretch. He was on quite the heater when everybody had Turnbull mania, back in May. That magic might be gone. Like, you have no idea how he's going to respond when he comes back, if he comes back. And then, oh, by the way, they didn't have a role for him as a reliever. So, like, do you think that they're going to just find a role for him in September as a reliever? Like, what does that look like? Is he a long man? Is he pitching when it's 6-1? Is he getting key outs for you? Like, I don't know. I don't know that you can. I think that you're right back to where you were in late March with Spencer Turnbull. Like, we have this guy. Maybe we'll find let's just see what happens. He doesn't have a defined role.
The one advantage that they could have, and we say could because it's not a guarantee, but it's probable, is that as long as they maintain this comfortable lead in the NL East and there is no race for the division, that they could try things out once he comes back. Try him in different roles and see, can he take down a higher leverage inning? Do we need him for okay, you're a multiple inning role. Try him out as a guy coming in with runners on base, replacing the starting pitcher. How does he deal with that? So there are things that they can try to do. That's the advantage of having a big lead. And even if it fails and you end up blowing a game, it's not going to hurt you, right? So there are things like that they can try and do to figure it out. But I agree with you. Right now, you don't know what Spencer Turnbull is for this team.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting. I think just to wrap up the trade deadline conversation, we actually probably should talk a little bit about Austin Hayes. We didn't really get into that a whole lot. But the prediction here is another pitcher done with the offense. Pitcher might be a starter. Is that the summary here?
That's what I think. I tend
to agree with you. I do.
It's just reading tea leaves. It's not informed information that someone told me on the sly. I'm just trying to read, how things go. And I know Dombrowski believes in having the starting pitching depth. And I've asked him about it. If you remember, we talked about this last week, the question that I asked, and I think it's even more prescient now with Suarez going on the injured list. But I asked him when we met in the GM's box right before the All-Star break in the Oakland series. And I said, does the injury to Ranger and, Wheeler being, shut down for 2 weeks, does that kind of change your line of thinking? when it comes to starting pitching at coming up to the deadline. And he said, I wouldn't say it changes it because you're already thinking it. So what does that mean? So if he was thinking about it then, I would be stunned if they don't add another pitcher. I would be stunned.
All right, game 1 of the National League Championship Series, Zach Wheeler, Tyler Glasnow. What is the Phillies outfield from left to right?
Glasnow, it's probably Hayes, Marsh, Castellanos.
So you have Hayes as your everyday left fielder at this point. How do you feel about that?
If you asked me, I wouldn't. So I think I texted you. I was out at a bar with Anthony Jr. yesterday.
While I was working hard watching.
While you were working hard.
Colby Allard.
Yeah, it was good. And we had this discussion. So somebody at the bar had brought up that Josh Bell was put on waivers, right? And he's having a terrible year. He's not having a good year, right?
Just take him so you're not.
No, I know, it kills the Phillies, right? But somebody had mentioned, oh, look, Josh Bell was put on waivers. Whatever. He's having a bad year, terrible year. But I brought up this, and just as a conversation piece, not because I would say this is what I would do, but just as a conversation piece. And I said, let's imagine Bryce Harper was willing to go out to the outfield. Would you rather have Josh Bell at first base and Bryce Harper in left field, or would you rather have Bryce Harper at first base and Austin Hayes in left field?
Against a right-hander?
Well, remember, Josh Bell's switch hitter, right? So you assume it doesn't matter.
I mean, well, what for me, it's more like removing. Like I have questions about Hayes and hitting right-handed pitching. Like that's
so do I. But I mean, just in general, like who brings you more offense? Who would be a better offensive player?
Right. Yeah,
Josh Bell. Or so to me, like, and the argument that I was
the fact that you have to have that conversation, I think, kind of just demonstrates the point. Like,
and that's
you would even ask yourself that.
Like to me, the biggest issue here that nobody wants to talk about is and I don't want to make it sound like Bryce is not a team guy, because he certainly is. But it's kind of like an inflexibility with him sometimes, where he has to hit third. So that's your lineup has to be built around that. He wants to play first base. So your deadline approach has to be around that. You have a guy who played his entire career in the outfield, right? Until a year ago. So if there were more options available at first base in the trade deadline, why not ask him, hey, just for the second half of this year, because we're trying to win a friggin' World Series, what do you think about going back out into the outfield just for the second half of the year? Next year, you're right back at first base. Like, to me, like those conversations are non-starters with the Phillies. So this is a hypothetical world that I'm living in right now, right? But at the same time, like, why not think that way? Instead, we're so committed to it has to be this, so here's our only option. And so in that regard, I look at it and say, Austin Hayes, nice fourth outfielder. It's an upgrade over Christian Pache for sure. And if you told me that he was just going to be that role where he plays against lefties in left field, I'm in. I think it's a great pickup. But do I think he's an everyday guy?
And I'm like, go get a real center fielder and let Marsh and Hayes do their thing out and left. Yes. And I feel great. Like, I'm like, okay, you have built an absolute machine. And I think that's the thing. Like, you can look at this objectively and say, there's enough here. They can do it. This team could win the World Series. There's such an obvious gap here where you're like, why not try to address this? And I'm not saying that like Luis Robert is the guy. Like, guy's hitting 217 right now. I know he's not a perfect player. Do you want to go give up your elite prospects to bring him here? I get it. I understand. He's not Juan Soto. I don't know. I don't know.
Hey, all right. Well, if they don't win the World Series, though, that guy that you just mentioned might be on the radar for next year.
I know. Because they're not going to come back with this outfield setup next season. Like,
no shot.
No shot.
No shot.
And they can tell you, like, oh, yeah, this is a championship outfield. It might be. Your bullpen better be damn good, and your starting pitching better hold up, because that's not a championship outfield. It's just not.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, anyway.
There was There was one other thing, because I don't want you to lose sight of it, because I know you wanted to talk about it.
Yeah.
Why wasn't Bryson Stott in the starting lineup yesterday?
Well, because if you spit the scenario through a computer, obviously Edmundo Sosa in his 955 OPS entering play yesterday against left-handers was far superior to the 630 OPS that Bryson Stott's posted. So, like, just straight up, if you're trying to construct the best lineup on any given day, you say, well, yeah, I mean, Edmundo Sosa right now, based on what's happened this season, gives us a better chance. No question about it. I can't fault the Phillies for that. And by the way, like, that was a swing game. Like, it's time to win a series. Let's go win one. Let's take our best shot. And I think that's the problem, is that the Phillies think that their best shot is Edmundo Sosa at second base over Bryson Stott. You look now, 9 games post All-Star break. Bryson Stott started 6 of them. 6 of them. Yesterday, he comes in, pinch hit opportunity, grounds out, plays 2 innings in the infield, and then see you later. That's your day. And what's interesting about it, we've talked a lot about him. We've noted his struggles. But what jumped out at me, and I wrote about this, and if you read the Crossing Broad story, like, dude, like, yeah, I already read it. We don't need to spend that much time on it. But if you didn't, my point is, for 2 months, you have this guy that you think is like a primetime player. He's a foundational piece, young, upcoming middle infielder. He's taken a step back this season, and he's really been going through it for 2 months. Hitting under 200 from, I think, May 19th through entering play in this series. I think he was hitting 199, 510 OPS. It's like dreadful.
Yeah.
And he's been searching for it and searching for it and searching for it. And then finally, Friday night, Saturday night, it clicks. He has 2 really good games, making an impact, finally creating some momentum. And then you bench him again. And like against a rookie left-hander, not a guy that's a wipeout dude. And that guy can't see the field. I just don't know. We've been talking about this for weeks. But like, actions speak louder than words, man. And like, the Phillies' actions around Bryson Stott, to me, I'm not saying it's unwarranted. Like, what they are doing makes sense. But like, you don't give that guy an opportunity to see if he can roll another good game in there. And I know that like they get Gill tonight, like from the Yankees, and like he'll be back in there. I know that. But like, if you want this dude to figure it out, like, don't you let him rip and like try to ride the wave a little bit?
Yes. That was like, so they talked about wanting Brandon Marsh to figure it out hitting against left-handers, and he was in the lineup yesterday. Okay, great. That was perfect. That's exactly what you want. That's the kind of thing. Like, and I just talked about the whole Turnbull thing, where you say you have the runway to try some things and get guys, figure out what you could do for the playoffs. Yesterday was a perfect opportunity to get Bryson Stott back in the lineup against a left-handed pitcher that's not a dominant pitcher and see how it looks. It's a perfect opportunity, and they decided not to take it. And there's probably reasons that we don't know as to why that is, but I looked at it as a missed opportunity. That's all.
And maybe he was a little tight, and they, said, like, let's not risk it. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
If all things are equal, if everything is transparent, and we just assume that he was healthy, and he was healthy enough to go out there and play late in the game, so I'm going to say he was healthy enough. It's just very strange to me. I just don't know how they. I mean, I think I do know how they view him in this moment. What I guess I'm curious about is, what does that mean beyond this year? And I just think it's a storyline. If you're watching these games and you see these lineups come out, I'm not telling you that Bryson Stott gives you your best chance to win, because the numbers don't suggest that. So again, I'm not killing the Phillies for it, but I think it's very interesting. I was stunned that he was not in the lineup yesterday. I really was.
Yeah, I guess. And so my guess is he won't be in the lineup Wednesday when they face Nestor Cortez, being a lefty, right? So
what do you expect here? The Phillies going to get up off the mat this week against the Yankees. It should be an awesome atmosphere down there for three days. You expect sellouts and then some, I would say. It's a really compelling series, and pitching matchups are pretty good. What you get,
all 3 are good.
Cole and Cortez on their side, and you get Wheeler, Nola, Sanchez on the Philly side.
Correct.
So these are fun matchups. The Yankees the last 2 days have hit. They have not hit before that. We'll see. I mean, it's a really interesting series. I mean, the Phillies, to me, like, this is a series like where we always talk about them being like red light guys. Like, it's kind of like time to, like, it's time.
Yeah.
And you should be up for this one. This isn't the Twins in the middle of July. Like this is, and the Twins are good. But I'm saying, like, it's time. This is when you show up for.
And it's not only that, Bob. It's the last time you're playing in front of your fans for a while.
Yeah.
Like this one is, you should leave your fans feeling good about it before you head out on a long trip.
Yeah, because you're not coming back until what, like August 12th, August 11th?
Something like that, whatever the date is. Yeah. It's a 10-game road trip. So with no off days.
Yeah. That's
I mean, it's an off day going out and an off day coming back, but no off days while you're out there.
You think here's one, like if I were hosting a radio show and I wanted to get some caller engagement, Phillies had all these all-stars, and I know that Suarez and Wheeler didn't go out, but you go to the all-star game, you don't get a break. I mean, you're flying out there, you're playing, there's all the festivities and the fan stuff and obligations, and then you get on a plane and show up in Pittsburgh. They heard it all by like just the volume of players that they sent out there. Like, was the all-star break less impactful for the Phillies than it would be for some other teams?
Or more impactful
in a negative way.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, Bryce and Trey have not been particularly great since the break. Well, Trey was started off okay, but he's hitting it now. He's hitting his rut now. Bohm hasn't been, he's not been awful, but he's not been great. The pitchers are the pitchers, whatever. They barely pitched, but yeah, it's a good question.
Did I black out? Did we do the Turner thing with his shortstop, his defense? I mean, as bad as he was at the plate this weekend, like that's fine. That happens. But you know how like we sit in the press box off to the side, right? Like we're a little bit off the plate to the left-hand batter's box, first base side. So I was getting water when was it David Fry hit the ground ball to shortstop that he booted or that he stumbled on. So I was walking towards the dining room and I was right at the middle of the box when that ball was hit. And off the bat, I was like, this is a double play. I thought to myself, and I didn't listen to the radio feed yesterday. So like sometimes I'll listen to the radio feed as I'm like covering the game and I'll get the talking points and how did they see it. So I didn't talk to anyone else, but I saw it and I said, this is a double play. And I watched him hesitate and sort of stumble. And then he goes down to the backhand and doesn't make the play. And I'm like, all right, like tough play. Obviously, they're going to score that a hit. But in my mind, I'm like, damn, he should have made that play. And I'm like, am I just being hard on him? And then after the game, Rob's asked about it. He says, yeah, I thought it was a double play off the bat. Now, having gone back and looked at it a couple more times, I don't know if it was going to be a double play. Maybe, but like it should have been an out. He should have gotten an out somewhere on that ball. And the reaction time was slow. His footwork was weird. And it's just like, it's become clear to me, like we're a 2024 show. We're all about October here. Like this season, this is the season. You start looking out beyond this season. He's not going to play shortstop for this team much longer, right? Like, do they run this back in 25? Like, I'm not entirely sure, but beyond next year, I don't see it.
No, I don't either. And I think that's why they're so reluctant to move Aiden Miller, because I think that they look at it and say he's going to have to play shortstop because Trey Turner cannot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
So what does that mean for Bryson Stott?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, because then it becomes, so the thing is that Bohm becomes a free agent before Stott. So what the Phillies do with Alec Bohm will tell you what they do with Bryson Stott. If they sign Alec Bohm, Bryson Stott's probably not going to be here. If they don't sign Alec Bohm and let him walk, maybe Stott goes to short and Miller becomes the third baseman. I don't know, something along those lines. There are ways to kind of multiple ways to skin that cat, right? So it'll be interesting to see what it ends up being. But I do not think Trey Turner is shortstop long term. No.
You have 2 more years to make a decision on Alec Bohm, so it's not like you have to do anything right now. He's a free agent after 26.
Yeah.
Just if you had a guess, got out your crystal ball right now in this moment, does he get another contract here?
No.
I don't think so either.
I don't. I think that's one of the tougher decisions that they make, but I think that's one that they move on from.
Yeah, you ride him up until he's 30 and say like, all right, he was a good player here, but we don't need to do 5 years at 120.
Right.
Interesting. They win a couple World Series and he's ripping doubles into the gap every other at bat. That probably changes, but
sure.
Because you're going to have to ride him out at third base for the reason you just said. I mean,
yeah.
You got your first baseman, so you got to decide, like, what does the defense look like when he's 32, 33? Does it get better?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Probably
Interesting.
not.
We're covering all the aspects today.
Yeah.
We should have led with that. Alec Boone's future in Philadelphia, because nothing else is going on right now. All right, what did I miss? We got anything else besides one last thing?
Nah, and so my one last thing, once again, focuses on injuries around baseball. And I look at a few that are just kind of, I want to just kind of get your take on. I remember you were texting me middle of the week about how hot the Mets were, and you sent me like the Big Apple in center field, right, as a photo via text. And then you get all excited about the Mets, and Kodai Senga goes out for his first start and rips up his calf and is done for the season.
Yes,
that's a rough one, man.
That's a tough one. Took a little bit of air out of the balloon too, as they take the first two against the Braves, and then the Braves respond. From a Phillies perspective, great weekend, right? Like,
right?
Not that you're rooting for injury, but the split, like,
yeah,
that's the ultimate outcome. Yeah, I mean, that's a brutal injury. I would point to the fact that they've obviously made this run or have had their resurgence without him. But you do wonder. I mean, this is the sport. You talk about ebbs and flows. The Mets have done a great job in sort of resurrecting their season, and they deserve credit for that. But can they sustain that? Like, are they going to be able to sustain what they've done for the last 4 weeks when you lose a guy like that? Like, the pitching just is not there to do that. And like
they were counting on him.
Yeah,
like
that was the trade deadline move. Like, we'll go out, maybe make a move or two. But I like the Winker move, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, I like him. I'm a fan of him. I think he's when he's dialed in, like, I really think that he can be a productive player. But Senga was supposed to be the thing that it was like, all right, boys, like, now we go. And to lose him on the field kills you. And I just wonder from like a mental standpoint. By the way, I guess I don't want to get to the spot before you do, but like, I guess you want to talk about Atlanta's latest injury.
Oh, you mean Reynaldo Lopez?
Yeah.
That was number 2 on my list. Yes.
Forearm tightness. That always sounds good.
Yeah.
They sent him for an MRI. We'll see.
I'll say this, Bob. I'll say this about this one, because again, it goes back to our preseason conversation about the Braves and why I felt the Phillies were going to hunt them down this year. Is I felt that their rotation was relying on too many older guys, and then Lopez, who's not a kid, but who hasn't started in a long time. And so now you're going to put a lot of innings on this guy. And how's his body going to respond to that after being a reliever for the last several years? And lo and behold, we get to a point where he's throwing all these innings and suddenly he has an injury crop up, right?
Well, what's his name down in Atlanta? The MLB writer, Mark Bowman or whatever his name is. Remember we were talking about that during the Philly series, and we said he was like, hey, they should probably pump the brakes on him before the All-Star game. The innings are really up there. And then he went out and just destroyed the Phillies. And I said, oh, I guess the Braves had it right. But then you wonder if you're hit to his point, like, okay, fast forward 2-3 more weeks, and here we are. Like, did you guys run him into the ground? And for what? Was that game against the Phillies, that decider to win a series? What did that get you? Got you nothing. Yeah. And, not to say that had he not started or they gave him more time that this wouldn't have happened. Who the hell knows? You don't know that. But yeah, I mean, that was the fear, and here we are now. And you don't know what the injury is, but anytime you remove a guy with forearm tightness and then you are concerned enough that you send him for an MRI, like, that's not good.
Yeah, absolutely. And third, and kind of off the radar, we haven't talked about him in long enough, but poor Mike Trout had his rehab assignment cut short after a couple innings last week, and he said, and he did an interview right before that game, like the minor league team, the Angels AAA affiliate. Their reporter was interviewing Mike Trout. He was talking about his knee, how it feels great. He's really feels in good shape. He's ready to get back out there. He's excited to get back. And after 3 innings, he pulls himself out, and it's been a week, and he still hasn't even run on that knee. Where is he at this point, Bob? in his
kind of
career.
wonder, like, is it worth trying to come back this season other than for what? I mean,
Yeah.
they're not going to win. He's not going to be moved. And, you know, the Angels might want to see him back out there because if they say, hey, finally, this is the winner, we have to move him. It'd be nice to have a September where he hits 320 with 9 homers and we feel good about that. And, okay. But other than that, like, what's the upside? I mean, you're starting to look at his career. And I mean, he has not played more than 140 games since 2018.
Yeah.
The last since 2019, 134, 53 in 2020. It was a condensed season, as we all know. 36 in 21, 119 in 22, 82 last year, 29 this year. You're looking at a guy, and it's a sad story, right? Because you are looking at a guy who's now 14 years into his career, and he might play 20. He might. But he is not, we're at the point where he is not going to realize his full potential. Like, It was like, oh man, it's a shame not to have one of the best players in the game or the best player in the game out there. It's a bummer for the remainder of the year. You when this is all said and done, it's going to be a story about, wow, what a great player he was, but he never came close to the numbers that he could have compiled because he's just never healthy.
Yeah.
And it's a shame. And you hope for his sake and for baseball's sake that he comes back and has 3 more really good years where you say that was the guy, but you're getting further and further away from that. Like, we don't need to like ask out Trout or bring home Mike or any of that shit this offseason. I want nothing to do with that.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't risk that at this point. It's a shame. Yeah. It's a real shame.
It is a shame. It sucks.
Yeah, completely. But that's it. Those were the 3 injuries I wanted to talk about. Yeah.
Real quick. One last thing for me. If the Orioles do not make another move for pitching besides Sir Anthony Dominguez, are you comfortable with them being your World Series pick?
No, but
I know that Zach Eflin. Okay.
I'm going to stick with them, but no, I'm not comfortable about
Dominguez and Zach Eflin. Is that enough to do it?
No.
Yeah, they need to make another move. They need to make another move badly. Maybe 2. I think they need another bullpen piece, another starting pitcher.
Yeah, and again, a more bar conversation with Ant Jr. We're sitting there saying, if Baltimore doesn't do anything, it's going to be the friggin' Astros again, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Feels that way.
Like, I'm just saying, like
6 weeks ago, we're talking about Kyle Tucker running around the outfield for the Phillies. Now he's going to be hitting a Game 5 3-run homer against him in the World Series. That'll be great.
There you go. Yeah.
All right. Let's end it on a positive note.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah. Jesus. All right. Look, well, how about this? If they do something, right? If they do something that makes us say, like, hey, look at that, we should probably do this again before Friday.
Yeah,
I'm around. I guess this will be talking to you Friday, but
yeah.
All right. So for Anthony Sanfilippo,
I mean, I'll be down there. You know, I will tell you that, like, I'm looking forward to this series against the Yankees, but part of me is like, they should have made this series against a crap team for the trade deadline because there's so much to focus on with the matchup here.
Yeah.
That if something big happens tomorrow, we're going to miss an entire freaking game.
Yeah.
Like, really, like the Garrett Cole versus Aaron Nola game is going to be completely in the book. Like, nobody's going to pay attention to it if something big happens tomorrow.
You're right. Beat writer problems. Sad. And I'll be there for the whatever it is. Is it like 11:05 start on Wednesday? What time they play that game? 1? Is that a 1 o'clock?
12:35.
Jesus. All right. Rise and shine. All right. Well, for Anthony Sanfilippo, I'm Bob Wankel. We will talk to you later this week. All right.